Welcome to Coruzant Technologies, home of the Digital Executive Podcast. Welcome to the Digital Executive. Today's guest is Brielle Wohle. Brielle Wohle is the founder of CrossGen Media and leading voice for Generation Z. Brielle works with businesses, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, consultants, coaches, and any individual who wants to maximize their LinkedIn profile, presence, and authority in general. Every business faces unique challenges, whether it's increasing visibility, boosting engagement, or driving sales. She deep dives to understand your specific issues and goals, further implementing strategies that bring real results. Brielle is extremely passionate about making content that helps others bridge generational gaps through effective communication skills and strategies, building utmost confidence while creating and sustaining a resilient mindset. Her background includes strong people and communication skills, sales, marketing, branding, and leadership. She also has a vast experience with social media and content curation as well. Well, good afternoon, Brielle. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Brian. Thank you so much for having me on.
Love it. Appreciate that. Yes, this is awesome. Been looking forward to this podcast all week. We do so much, on LinkedIn these days, and you know this as an influencer yourself. You do a lot of getting out there, getting some messages, videos, etc. And we love the content. So we are so thankful that you're able to jump on and do a quick conversation with us tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to answering some good questions.
Awesome. So Brielle, I'm going to jump into your first question. Could you share the journey that led you to found CrossGen Media and what gap you saw in the market that you wanted to address specifically for Generation Z?
Yeah, sure. So originally, about 2 years ago, I first jumped onto LinkedIn. I deleted all my other social media platforms. And that is because if you are not creating and you are mostly consuming, in my opinion, I believe that is a waste of time. And especially in my generation, I see it. Unfortunately, a lot of younger individuals who are just mindlessly scrolling. And I made the argument like, hey, get on LinkedIn. You could be utilizing your time wisely, building your future. And so for that first year, that's exactly what I did is I really put myself out there in different opportunities and different positions and started getting my name out there. I connected with people. I started engaging with people. And then a year later, which is about a year ago now today, I started actually building my brand and posting content. And through that, have created and systemized an awesome strategy to get consistent engagement, to again, cultivate relationships, meet people. And so I saw that there has just been a massive gap, not only with Gen Z, but with other generations as well. And it seems that there's been difficulties being able to effectively collaborate and communicate. So that's where I just kind of started talking about stuff like that, how we can better collaborate among the generations, how we can communicate, build confidence. I even go into kind of talking about like building a resilient mindset and stuff like that, and how all of those separate things are cohesive and how we can, become a better society through all of that.
I love that story, Brielle. It's awesome. And you're right. I think all generations on social media aimlessly scroll through social media. And, I'm guilty of it myself, although I do know, like you, several years ago when I became a tech influencer, I did a lot of posting on LinkedIn. And I think LinkedIn truly is killing two birds with one stone. You're actually helping your career while diving into the social media aspect of things where people get drawn in. So I really, really do appreciate that. And Brielle, next question I have for you is your work is centered around bridging generational gaps through effective communication. Can you provide examples of strategies that businesses can use to communicate more effectively across different generations?
Sure. So I would say, there's the on social media aspect and then the off social media aspect. In person is a lot more difficult because, again, with my generation, I've noticed that there's a big communication gap. A lot of people in my generation, they don't want to hop on a phone call. They don't want to communicate or have uncomfortable conversations because they don't know any better or they weren't taught any better. And I've seen a lot of that firsthand, which is exactly why in the workplace as well, other generations are finding it difficult to communicate and collaborate because there is this block. So, what I try and focus on and what I love talking about on my brand is, again, how we can bridge those gaps through effective communication skills. and how that impacts every area of our lives. I teach people, how, and this isn't coaching. This is genuinely like, this is my brand. This is the stuff I talk about. And ironically, it's actually separate from helping people maximize everything on LinkedIn. Like that is my business. But I've kind of also been able to keep the two separate things symbiotic as well. So, I just found my passion in talking about these things and noticed certain things were really helping people. But I would say that is the biggest way of how we're going to bridge the gaps is parents, teachers, friends, role models. Like we have to be able to learn effective communication skills, because without it, you're not going to have healthy relationships, whether that's in your professional life or in the workplace. You're not going to have sales in your business or a thriving business at all. Even in corporate, same thing, because you have to learn how to get through to people.
Thank you. And I really think that's important. And I appreciate what you're doing for your generation and beyond, right? Is helping people grow and learn. And as you know, they talk about all of this all the time is a EMP shockwave, like destroys electronics. Can you imagine for a week we didn't have,
Right.
social media and these sorts of tools? It would force us to get out of our shell and make those human to human connection. We talk about that a lot on the podcast as well. So I just want to highlight that and let you know, I so appreciate that because I'm a face-to-face person personally.
For sure.
Brielle, next question I have for you. You have vast experience with social media and content curation. How do you approach creating content that resonates across generations? And what are your top tips for boosting engagement on platforms like LinkedIn?
Yeah. So, I kind of switched my approach, and I think that's good for anybody, especially if you're running a business, is learning what do people like? What do people most engage with? What are people asking for help with? Because when your ego gets in the way and you're doing the content that you want to post for you, well, I feel like you're missing out on a lot of experience, opportunities, possibilities. But I started really maximizing my skills. I've been doing a lot of this stuff for like 5+ years behind the scenes for other companies and people as well. But I just found that when I take out my camera, it's just simply me being authentic. It's not crazy editing apps and scripting out all my videos. Like if I have something, a message on my heart that I feel like is going to add value into the world, or at least one person, then I'm going to start recording. And then I kind of bank up different videos and then I write my messages based off of that. But that would be my biggest advice for social media and creating content is, when you systemize it like that. And I feel like people sometimes get too hard on themselves. There's like that perfectionism aspect, like, I have to have the perfect setup, the perfect lighting. And, I would say writing, like if you can learn how to write, copyright, message, get through to people, whether you are, trying to get more sales, whether you're trying to get more speaking gigs, like whatever your end goal is, I would say my biggest tip for entrepreneurs, companies is learning how to message, nailing your hooks, nailing your call to actions, and all of those little aspects that play into, being able to tell your story and convey all of your messages in a way that is most compelling to your target audience.
Thank you. Love that. Appreciate the gems you just shared. They might be your little trade secret, but I think the tips that you offer here on the podcast go a long ways with our audience. So again, I'm so grateful for those. And Brielle, last question of the evening, looking towards the future. What trends do you foresee in the realm of social media marketing, content creation, and intergenerational communication? And how should businesses and professionals prepare to stay ahead?
I would say nowadays, businesses definitely have to keep more than an eye out for AI. Obviously, I feel like everybody at least knows this nowadays, because the reality is if you're not going to start integrating that into your business, you are going to get left behind, or even worse, you might end up going bankrupt. And even if we're talking 5-10 years down the road, it is just so crucial that you start thinking outside the box. How can I utilize this thing? How can I start incorporating this thing into my business? Even if something else like it out there already exists, that's okay. I feel like people sometimes focus on their competitors too much. And I would rather say, like, how can you be the competitor? How can you be so good at thinking outside the box that you're always ahead of the game? And it kind of goes with people copying you as well. With being on social media, sometimes you unfortunately do see that, like people copying you word for word. And it's like, you know what? You can know that if you're constantly thinking, if you're constantly creating, you can always know that you're going to be ahead of the game in that realm. But that would be my biggest 2 cents on that.
Thank you again, Brielle. That's awesome. Really, really is. And love the fact that you've rolled up your sleeves and dove in early in your career. And all I can say is you're going to have an amazing career long-term. And we're going to appreciate that because we love following your content. So Brielle, it was such a pleasure having you on today. And I look forward to speaking with you real soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. And thank you to your audience for listening.
Bye for now.